guess I've never really felt like I'm there, like who I really want to be. I am being way, way better than I was yesterday, and I plan on being way better tomorrow than I am today. However, I haven't felt like I'm there. And I don't ever plan on being there. I always plan on improving each and every day. I always plan on doing something better today than I did yesterday and better tomorrow than I did today.
Hi, I'm Stacy.
And I am Mark, and this is the Gurus and Game Changers podcast. Welcome, everybody, into Gurus and Game Changers. So when Stacy and I first started talking about this podcast, we knew we wanted to bring people on who, through their experiences, would help you with your life, overcoming obstacles, motivation, discipline, all those things. And while we've pretty much touched on that with everybody that we've talked to, we never had the opportunity to encapsulate all of that into one guest, into one expert in that field. And today we have that person. Today's guest, Tony Schmaltz, has spent much of his life in the personal development space, for sure. He's coached, he's trained, he's counseled countless people on essentially how to just live their best life and what that means for them. And what I love about him is he's not the type of coach who just throws out motivational platitudes like you see on social media ad nauseum. He is a no-nonsense, get off your butt, take responsibility, and take some action kind of coach. That's what we love. He even wrote a book. Where's the book?
Right here.
It's called Wake the Bleep Up. We'll call it that. Wake the Bleep Up. Break down the walls, blocking your possibilities. And it not only captures his style, but it also captures his magic, because he's very unassuming, very polite, very soft. But for your own good, damn it, he's going to tell you. He's going to tell you what has to change and how it is for you. Okay, so if you are not 100% happy with your life, with your health, with your relationships, with your job, or just your day-to-day, you feel like you're coming up short, you're not doing what you should, or you're not doing what you say you would, this is the guy that can help you improve you so you can thrive in all those different situations. Happy to have him in studio. Thank you for coming to studio, traveling to be in studio.
Absolutely.
Tony, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure. I love flying up here for this show. This is great.
All the way from Florida.
Right.
Yeah.
Great to meet you in person.
You.
It's been great.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to get right to it.
Oh, please do.
Tell me about the impetus to write your new book,
Yeah.
Wake the Bleep Up. This is your chance to be the real you and find the life of your dreams.
Right.
Okay, so talk to me about this book.
All right, so that started, the book actually started almost 3 years ago. I wrote a complete transcript about 3 years ago, although at that time I was still working full-time for somebody else. And so when I went full-time as a coach, I reread the book and I said, this is not who I am anymore. Not who I am. So I pretty much trashed that, with the exception of a couple of chapters I kept, and rewrote the whole thing. And I did that from a place of, like you said, experiences from people I've helped, the experiences they've had, the results they've seen, the results I've seen, my family and I have seen. And I went, this is who I am now, and this is how I'm going to best help people. And as you were pointing out, Mark, it's pretty in your face. I spend a lot of coaches spend a lot of time on the squishy side. Mm-hmm. Although I do play in that realm, I spend less time on the squishy side than most other coaches. So I'm more direct. I'm more, this is what you need to change.
I always felt like that's what's been missing is the accountability. Yeah. Like there's a lot of coaches out there, but there aren't enough accountability coaches out there.
Right.
That don't just take, you need to work on this. No, get up and do it.
Yeah, exactly. No, and you're absolutely right. I've personally hired multiple coaches. In fact, most people, when they hear how much I've spent on personal development over the last few years, really lose their minds a little bit. But the best results I've ever seen are from those coaches, the ones that are just like, hey, stop doing that. Now do this, just in your face. And I'm like, wow, thanks. I needed it like that.
Well, we had that, right? We had that with our parents. Sit back from the TV. Put that away and go do your homework. Right. It was you could not negotiate with that.
Right.
And it was for your own good.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you replace that voice in your own head and become your own parent? That's hard.
It is hard. And from our parents' standpoint, they also were programming us to a certain extent. Everyone around us was, our teachers, our parents, our the people at church, our friends, everyone. We were being programmed to think a certain way. Think their way, not really think for ourselves. And so that's the real big impact. So when you're talking about changing that, it's being that direct, but still allowing the person to be able to think for themselves and come up with their own answers. So there's certain things where I'm just going to say, stop that right now. If there's something they're beating themselves up negatively, something negative that they're putting in their heads, it's like, I'll just say stop.
You've done that a couple times with us already before we started the podcast.
We'll see if they edit this in or not. But yeah, I did a couple times already.
So what are the walls? Like, says break down the walls blocking your possibilities. So like name some walls like for our audience.
Part of it is I just named the programming. That's actually literally the first chapter in the book is forget the programming. And that's not just our parents, not just our teachers, but the mainstream media. I mean, all the people who watch the news, shut off the news. There's ways of being informed without really getting that programming. So that's one of the main walls. One of the other ones is negativity. We're funneled. I mean, people are dumping dump trucks, piles of garbage all over us each and every day. And most people absorb that. They absorb that negativity. They speak negative into their world. And so we attract what we speak, and we speak negatively. You're creating that negativity in your own life. I like how you mentioned earlier, you're like, hey, I'm Mr. Positive. And that's awesome. Because when you speak positive, then you tend to be more positive and attract more positivity in your life. So there's just a couple. The other one this is one that I actively eliminate and actively help others eliminate, the word try. And I'm going to bring Yoda into it, but there is no try. There's no try. This was first in the coaching world made famous by Werner Erhard, where he was at one of his forums talking about, he asked a participant who was standing and said, hey, try to sit down. And they sat down. He said, no, you sat down. You didn't try to sit, you sat down. There is no try. You can't try to sit down because then you're sitting down.
Whoa.
There's really no try. You're doing something. You're always doing or not doing something.
Right.
There is no try. That is actually the key to success and happiness is practice and commitment. And you have to live that commitment. This is one thing that I went through about a year ago, and I help my clients go through, is I used to reschedule appointments. I used to miss appointments, things like that. Oh, I can't make it today. Unless you're an actual hospital emergency, you should always be committed to being there. My friend Devin, the one who actually just reached out to me on the way here, he is so committed. That man will not miss anything. Literally, he would have to be in the hospital for him to miss an appointment. And he said to me, if I ever find somebody as committed as myself, I'll work with them for free. I said, ooh. I said, well, I believe in paying for value, but challenge accepted. I'm like, here we go. All right. So
did you get it? Did you win?
I haven't tried. I haven't actually offered it up. It's just something in my mind. I'm going to be that committed. And since then, I have not missed a single appointment or rescheduled or anything.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm much more careful about the commitments. I'm not a yes man in any way, shape, or form. Speaking of which, don't be a yes person. Or it's okay to say yes, just not as often as you probably are. And so it's very, much more selective. So yes, it's something that I know I'm not going to make a commitment just because somebody's asking me to say yes.
Wow.
I'm going to think it through, and then okay, yes, you know what? I can commit to that. There's 3 parts to this book. The first part is all getting over the mindset piece of it. Like telling good stories. Telling good stories is huge. Most people that don't tell good stories, you've got somebody else standing there going, oh, when's this person going to be done? I've heard this a million times. You know, when you learn to speak directly and get to the point quicker, but however, keep people engaged, storytelling becomes that much easier. And if you're going to be any kind of leader in the world, you need to be able to tell good stories. This is just a collection of so many things that I've learned throughout thousands of hours of personal development, coaching, workshops, all the above.
You almost seem like a work on yourself junkie.
I kind of am.
So why?
Because I guess I've never really felt like I'm there, like who I really want to be. You know, I am being way, way better than I was yesterday, and I plan on being way better tomorrow than I am today. However, I haven't felt like I'm there. And I don't ever plan on being there. I always plan on improving each and every day. I always plan on doing something better today than I did yesterday and better tomorrow than I did today.
It's like a growth mentality.
You must have a vision of where there is, though.
I have a vision of where next is.
Got it.
So this is one thing I talk to people about when we talk about goal setting, because I do run through goal setting exercises with people. And I say you should never, ever hit your 5 or 10 year goals. Because as you start to get closer, your goals should change. They should develop. As I've progressed through these goals, I've making achievements, getting results, and now I'm like, oh, well, I'm here now. Now this 5-year goal the new 5-year goal is out here. So your goalpost should always be moving as far as your goals go. So for right now, I have visions of where I want my family and I to be. Yes, I will say in 5 years. Although a year from now, that may change. So my visions are revolving around some material things, some relationships, and and I practice that regularly, at least once a day, visualizing those. A lot of people talk about goal setting without vision, and really, my question is, how can you have one without the other? You know, how can you set a goal without having a vision? What are you shooting for if you can't see what it looks like to be at that result? Sure. You know, let's say, hey, I want to make $1 million in the next 3 years. Great. Can you picture having $1 million in your bank account? No? Well, then what are you shooting for? What are you actually trying to achieve? Do you know what it looks like? Do you know anyone that has $1 million? Do you know what it looks like to live that lifestyle? No? Then how do you know that's what you want to shoot for? So you really need to experience or know what that is. And I talk about the same thing when it comes to leaders in companies. I ask, what's your vision for your business? What's your vision for your company? And then they fumble, and I'm like, okay, do you consider yourself a good leader? Well, yeah. I said, well, then how can you lead without a vision? Where are you leading people to if you don't have a vision? And so then we go through the whole vision exercise and helping them get to a vision.
I think GPS helps too, because if you explain it to people and you're like, would you just go somewhere without knowing where you're going in the car? Yeah, you put the GPS on, you know where you're going in the car.
Ooh, I like that.
How do you stop being a people pleaser? Because I feel like for those of us who are.
It starts with a choice. It starts by choosing that you're not going to be that anymore. Now, then it takes practice and commitment. However, you have to start. Everything starts with a choice. You know, if the day comes that you want to stop being a people pleaser, you will choose to stop being a people pleaser.
What is a guy like you who lives where you're steeped in personal development for yourself, for your clients, like your career, your life, everything about it? Your kids are probably steeped in it, because I know I try to steep my son in it all the time. What's your first win of every day?
I say my declarations. Before using the bathroom, before doing any of that, I make my bed, make the bed or make my half of the bed, and then I speak my declarations.
Wait, what time do you get up?
4:00 every morning.
Oh.
So how many declarations do you have, and what are they? Are you willing to share those?
So I have 2 full pages of declarations, and they start with things like, I am incredibly patient with every person I encounter in person, in person, visual or verbal communications. I know that people are doing the best they can with the thinking they have. I say, I am the most loving and caring father to Stephanie, Tiffany, Melinda, Marcus, and the greatest grandfather in the world to Sophia and Raphael. I am otherworldly supportive to my amazing, gorgeous, and huge-hearted wife, Anika. And the list goes on. I've got 2 pages of these, and they all start with, I am. Some are visions for the future. Right, some are what I deliver for my family, for clients, for friends, for family, a little bit of everything.
Got it. And then where do you go from there?
Then I meditate for 10 to 30 minutes, depending on what my schedule looks like for the day. No less than 10 and no more than 30.
Every day?
Every single day. And then I read for at least 25 minutes. And there's a reason for the 25 minutes. Lots of studies have been shown that if you read more than 28 minutes at a given sitting, that you start to forget what you read at beginning. So in order to maintain that memory of what you've read, I cut it off at 25 minutes.
Okay.
And then I exercise. And nothing fancy. It could be walking around the block a few times, doing some jumping jacks just to get the blood flowing. And then I get cleaned up and start my day.
That's it. That's your morning routine.
That's my morning
routine. And
that
sets you up for success every day.
Every day.
Do you have a to-do list?
Yes. Yes, I do. And I typically only attack number 1 priority for a day. Now, when I'm saying I don't only do one thing, although that is the first thing. So part of my evening routine is I have what's called a Foursquare journal. This is a journal of my own design, using pieces from other people I've learned. And I open up my journal, I draw a line down the middle vertically and horizontally. Top left is writing down everything I've accomplished for the day. And that could be as simple as going grocery shopping, making my bed, speaking with this client for an hour. We take for granted some of the things that we do day in and day out, like doing laundry, doing the dishes. Those are accomplishments. And most people just let them fly by like, I don't know what I did today. Well, you did a lot. You went to work. You did, all these things are accomplishments. Next one is, what did I learn today? And it can be simple as something I learned from a friend or a class I was doing or a book I was reading. Number 3 is, what am I grateful for? And make a list. It can be the same thing as yesterday, or it can be brand new things. And then number 4 is, what is my number 1 priority for tomorrow? And so when you talk about the to-do list, I do have a longer list, but I always make sure that the night before I write down my number 1 priority for tomorrow.
This is a lot. How do you, so that's why you have to wake up before?
I choose to wake up at 4 because there's...
How do you fit in work? Like, it feels like that's going to take, how long does that take, that first part? In the
Hour and a
morning?
half.
Okay. And then the last part is like
The
before-
evening time one?
Yeah.
That's about a half an hour.
Okay.
That's not bad. And
Yeah.
that's my wind down time before bed.
If
so.
you miss it, it's what happens.
Ooh. I was just asked this question the other day, actually,
Mm-hmm.
by my coach, and he said, "What happens when you don't do your morning creation?" My day does feel off. I can't say it feels bad, but it just feels off.
You beat yourself up, or
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
a little bit. Not. I've tend to have gone beyond that for the most part.
That's good.
Beating myself up. However, it does feel. You're just like, something's not right today. Oh man, I didn't do my morning creation or my evening wind down or something. It just doesn't feel right.
You and I are very much aligned.
it's
in
like
how
you
we
guys
spend
are
our
like
mornings.
brothers from another mother. Like, this is really weird. Like, yeah, tell him your routine.
I don't know about whole routine. Well, it's just very similar. I
Yeah.
get up early,
3:30.
3:41,
3:41.
which is a very purposeful time.
I like
but,
that.
But what's interesting is it's that not a lot of people know that I do, that I will share, is I have a to-do list. We all have a to-do list, or you should have a to-do list.
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
I don't have
But
a-
I also keep a to-done list, which is
that's cool.
exactly what you're saying.
Accomplishments,
And I have kept that to-done list for a long time. And sometimes you
Wow.
look back and say, that was a significant amount of work, time, effort, labor that you would have forgotten about completely. And that was an entire Saturday of my life. So I want to remember that I did that. I don't keep it at, ad infinitum. But certainly every week, every 2 weeks, I'm keeping a running total of what I accomplished, because I also want to know where my time goes, because it flies by, right? But I'm right there with you. You get up, the whole thing, the exercise first thing in the morning, and if I don't follow my morning routine, it's not just off. I am wildly unproductive. I am not focused. By 9, 10 a.m.,
Yeah.
I already know my day is going to be going like this instead of skyrocketing and, being productive and attacking whatever's on my to-do list
Right.
for the day. So I get it. It's funny. I always say my first win in a day is setting my alarm the night before.
Yeah.
Because when you're getting up at 3:41, there's always that conversation.
do I turn this
Like,
on?
oh my
So,
God.
what time do you go to sleep?
10:30.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there. I go to sleep when I sit down.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
I
sit
just don't
down
want
and
people
pass
to
out.
feel like they have to do these types of
don't.
routines
No.
in order to be a productive part of society. Because as I'm sitting here, I'm like, I feel inadequate. I don't
That's a
do
great
those
point.
things. I don't do those things. Like, I think you got to pick and choose what's going to make your day work.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So maybe someone does one or two things of that. Maybe they do it every other day. Maybe they do
Right.
it every day. You know what I mean? You guys are just
it's a great
sort
point.
of the, at
There's
one end of the
outliers, right?
spectrum.
There's always outliers.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, and this is one thing I talk about with my clients. I talk with not just clients, with anybody, is everybody needs to find their own way.
Right.
This routine is a collection of 5 years of trials and errors and what worked, what didn't work. I've tried so many different things over the years, and this is just what came together and worked.
That's what I always tell people who are asking me, like, how do you get so much done? I get up so early. Well, I can't do that. Well, try getting up, meaning get up 20 minutes earlier.
Right. Yeah.
And just see what happens.
Yeah.
And guess what? If what happens is you sit around and look on your phone, then okay, I'm going to do something else the next time I do that.
And for somebody, they might need a 9-10 hour sleep night. You know
They
what I mean?
might.
They might need that.
Or they
So-
need more time to get started once they wake up.
Right.
Like I'm awake.
Me
Let's
too.
go.
I love what you said about your to-done list, and this is also
It's cool.
the accomplishments that I talk about, because
Same thing.
it's a motivator. Most people
Sure
don't
is.
know. When you look and go, wow, I actually got that much done. Now I want to do more tomorrow. But when you don't track those things that you've done, then you're sitting here thinking to yourself, what did I get done today?
Right.
You're not
Where
thinking
did this
about
day
it.
go? Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I love
Look,
that
it's
too.
2:30. Like, what happened?
Right.
That's really good. Yeah.
So that was the main reason behind the accomplishments. There's one of my mentors. His name's Steve Chandler. In fact, I was just listening to one of his audios on the way here. That's where I got that from. Was writing down the accomplishments every day from him. He's like, he wrote a book called 100 Ways to Motivate Yourself, and one of those ways was write down everything you've accomplished for the day. Because when you do that, you're like, wow, holy moly, I did a lot.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do more tomorrow.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
We've talked so much about like how awesome things are for you now. I know that you've gone through stuff, and I think
Yeah.
it's so good for our audience to see that someone like you has also had to dig himself out of a trench. So tell me about like a time or a few times when you were in that trench and how you got out.
Okay. All right. I'll give you two specific examples, one of which you guys know about. It's in here. It's actually under a chapter called It's Not All Peaches and Cream. So the first was when I went full-time coaching in 2021. I was actually laid off from the company I was working for. And in my entire career, I had started at the bottom and worked my way up throughout my entire career. I've been trained as a leader, never even had a sticky note in my file throughout any company I've ever worked at. And then all of a sudden I'm getting called into HR and saying, hey, we don't feel you're a good part of the team anymore. I was like, what?
Wow.
And I had my team and I had just been recognized like literally a week before by the VP of the corporation of being the model department in the entire corporation of 120 something divisions. They're like, you need to look at Tony Schmaltz's department down there in Lynn Haven. They are who you need to model after. And then a week later, they're walking me out. I was like, what in the wide world of sports is happening? So it was funny. So first person I called was my wife, and she actually was surprisingly supportive and not as worried. And then the second person I called was my coach, who at the time was this man here, Steve Krivda. I gave him my spiel. Here's how it went down. And he paused for a moment and said, congratulations. And I said, what? And he said, you weren't you there. You were miserable. And you've been telling me for 2 years that if you could coach full time, you could make it work. Here's your chance. I went, whew, sat there in my truck for what seemed like hours, but probably was only like 5 or 10 minutes. And I said, yep, he's right. Never looked back. So that was the first real big, during my personal development years anyway. And
So then what? You just pull your bootstraps up and then you just start coaching?
absolutely.
Yeah.
I practiced and I committed over and over and over. And that was during that time where I came up with the Schmaltzy and where I came up with the Schmaltzy tasks, and I started building courses, and I did some webinars and just went after it all. But the second big challenge, like you were talking about, was just over a year ago, 18 months ago, actually, where I was trying to run a big motivational speaker event. I mean, big. I mean, I had 1,000 seats all lined up. I had invested all the money into the venue, into the production company, into the venue, paying speakers. I mean, I had Les Brown that was going to come, Kevin Sorbo, Tom Ziegler. I mean, I had just names. Should have been the event of the year.
Yeah.
And just wasn't getting the ticket sales. And part of it was probably location. Panama City Beach is a challenge to
In
get
Florida?
to.
Yeah.
If it was like in Tampa or Orlando, where there's a lot more direct flights and they're less expensive, a lot more people said they would have made it. And also it was really too close to the pandemic. Most people were still afraid to travel. I was like, we're coming out of the pandemic now. Everyone's going to want to get back into person. And it probably was a little too soon. Anyway, so that one there lost a ton of money. I'm not going to give the exact dollar amount because lots of people are going to watch this and know me.
You don't have to do that. Yeah.
Anyway, it was enough to where my wife and I sold our house, and that's where we moved down to our current location, Palm Harbor. So,
Wow. So you had invested a lot of money in that event.
Yes.
And then, so was there a certain point where you said, oh, because I could see you're so optimistic.
Yeah.
Like you're probably like, oh, don't worry about it. Like, we're going to get more sales. We're going to get more sales. Like, what was the moment when you're like, this is not going to work?
So that's a great question. And there was actually a really big aha moment. My wife and I went on a marketer's cruise, and while on that cruise, I met several people who actually run events. And so at the time I was just like, I didn't think much of it. And then one of them sent me, and this was the crushing blow. One of them volunteered to send me their checklist for running an event. And I'm like, and they emailed it to me while I was on the ship. And I received this, and I was like, it's like 8 pages long. And I'm like, I've only done like a page and a half of this. And so it was literally at that point where I started to lose a hold of the vision. You know, as long as I held as long as I held on to the vision, things were progressing. But it was at that point where I started to lose it.
So you lost self-confidence.
Lost the confidence, lost the vision.
How close was this to the event?
About 4 months, 3 months.
Okay.
So it was close, getting close.
Getting close.
And so it was about 45 days beforehand where I just pulled the plug.
Do you think like if you had pushed, it might have still worked?
Maybe. So everyone who runs events said there's a hockey stick where you get a slow amount of sales, and then at the end they ramp up. What I looked at was I was like, okay, I'm either, if this doesn't come off, if I go through with it and I don't get at least X number of ticket sales, then I'm going to lose
this
X number
money.
more.
Yeah.
X month. So I can cut it off here, cut my losses, or I can potentially lose this much more. And so I made that decision. It was not an easy decision.
But I love your enthusiasm about it though. Like, you know, like you're like optimistic. You're like, I'm going to go do this.
Oh, and I'm going to do it again. I was telling you guys earlier. I don't regret anything ever. And I am glad that this happened this way, even though, it was a crushing blow. I learned so much from that, and I will do another event in the future. And now I'll know what I didn't know then.
Yeah, they get the checklist.
Yeah.
When you realized you had to pull the plug and you said to your wife or whatever, like, this is going to happen, we're going to have to sell the house.
That's a big blow.
It's a huge blow. Like, how did
that's
you,
tough.
so I guess what our audience should know is, like, when that happened to you, how did you then build yourself back up again?
Well, having the supportive wife that I have was part of it.
Right.
She was there every step of the way. She knew it was coming before. She was there on the ship with me when we got that checklist, and I was like, showing her. So she's been there through all of
She sounds awesome.
She is amazing. She is amazing. I'm very lucky. So building back up it's never a challenge because I always have a new vision. I always have a new vision. So
yeah.
I don't, the crushing blows don't last very long with me. It's maybe a weekend and I'm like, all right, I'll sulk for a weekend and then get it over with and then move on.
You
just
did it.
And it's like we talked about, it's that morning routine. Part of it is sticking with that morning routine of that is the motivator. That is the vision creator. That is the way to start your day. And if you continue on with that, then there's nothing you can't accomplish.
So you have been called the world's best belief coach by your peers.
Yeah.
How and why?
Because I always believe in myself. I always believe in other people.
I mean, I feel like you just kind of explained that.
I literally continue to have the most positive and forth-thinking visions and beliefs.
And believe in yourself and
100%.
believe in the people who work with you.
Everybody.
Yeah.
I believe in you guys.
Oh, thanks.
That's awfully nice.
Yeah, that is so nice.
Where do you come up short?
I do still carry a little bit of imposter syndrome. Still a little bit of comparitis. I actively work on that, but I still sometimes look at like a coach who's been around longer, more successful, well, quote unquote, more successful. And I go, man, if I was more like that guy, every once in a while, I've eliminated that mostly in my life, but every once in a while that still pops back in. That's probably the only real place I still fall short.
So what do you tell people when they say I have imposter syndrome? How to get out of it?
It's the same thing. It's a choice. So when I get those thoughts don't stick around. I mean, I will actively say out loud, stop it. Like if I get a thought like that's a negative thought, I'll go, stop it. I've had people look at me funny. They're like, what? They're like, what? What'd I do? What'd I do? I'm like, no, I was talking to myself. We're good. You're good.
That's amazing.
And there's something about verbalizing it. There's a psychology behind it. When you have a negative thought like that, if you tell yourself out loud to stop, you're more likely to stop that thought.
Yeah, they say your brain can't really tell. Like,
right.
Like if you're watching TV and there's a horror scene, like they think your brain thinks it's really happening.
Yeah,
like
correct.
so if you're saying stop it, your brain will be like, okay.
Right.
I'll stop it. Okay, so this is my last question. Since I've been researching and stalking you for the past 3 days, and you'll see. These
guys are good, by the way. This is a really good conversation.
So as I was looking and seeing all of your stuff, I was trying to think to myself, who is this guy? What is it? You have so many different facets of things that you help people with. You're a coach. You're a coach's coach. You're telling people to wake the bleep up. What? You're also talking about people pleasing. What would be sort of your positioning? Who you are? Who are you, and how are you? How do you want to portray yourself to the world?
Well, I like to portray myself as helping people create miracles in their lives, businesses, and careers. Literally, that's it. Help you. I can help you create miracles.
So how can we help you to get that message out?
Well, I mean, you guys can, first of all, go to Amazon, buy the book, Wake the Bleep Up.
Wake the Bleep
There's some resources, extra resources in there, or find me at TonySchmaltz.com. I have everything there everything that I do, everything I work on. There's lots of free videos, free stuff. Go there, and then of course follow me on social. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah, I really want to see you succeed. This has been so awesome.
I feel like we could all benefit from having a little Tony Schmaltz on our
Schmaltzy.
shoulder all day long.
A little schmaltzy.
Just to say, hey, don't say try, or hey, keep that positive mindset going, or believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Or any of the things that you talked to us today about. Can't thank you enough for coming out.
No, you guys are great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you
It's
so
been
much.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Learned something today.
Yeah.
For sure. All right. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you soon.